Welcome, freaks and geeks, perverts and other queers. My name is...
Good intro.
And other queers.
How are you, Ricky? My name's Jonathan Astro. AJ, how are you? What did you think of Ricky's bombastic intro?
I loved it. We're up for a good ep, guys.
Well, see, I was trying to do a counter from last week's, which was ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Yes.
And you were like, that's not acceptable anymore. So
because we said that you were being heteronormative.
That's
and
right. That's
a bigot and a transphobe and a loser and I don't know, whatever else. Whatever else are they saying about you and me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, no, this was good. I think, this show is for queers. If you're queer, then I don't know why you wouldn't like this show.
It's true.
I mean, we talk about titties and chubbies, a lot. And I think the word queer nowadays encompasses almost everyone on the planet from what I've gathered. So there you go. Like if you could just put, some nail polish on and a Smith's badge on your jacket and say I'm a queer. So
yeah,
there you go.
The label is for anyone who wants to stand out in a crowd.
It is, and standing out of the crowd tonight is Phantom of the Paradise, our film for SIDEBOOB Cinema, which is the show you're watching. You're hearing us listening to, by the way. I think we said that. If we didn't say that, it's SIDEBOOB Cinema. So, Phantom of the Paradise, 1974, Brian De Palma. What's our relationship to the film, people?
I have no relationship to the film whatsoever.
Me neither. And I'm glad that I have one now.
That's always the best when you feel that there's been an injustice that's gone on. It's more difficult when, either one of us has a stake in it. It's like, it's my favorite movie, or we watch it every year, or you're going on old information where you're like, Bill Murray in Stripes is really funny. And then you watch it again.
It really hurt, didn't it?
It wasn't good. I had a better time in Weekend at Bernie's 2 than I did with Stripes. Isn't that big?
That's telling, yeah.
Don't you think that's big?
That's real big.
Like I laughed more. I enjoyed it more. Good music as well. So
yeah, that is big.
Well, I got to tell you, I came to this film not knowing what I was watching, and I even forgot that you said last week that it was a musical. So I was like 5 minutes into it, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? What has John got us watching? And luckily, by about the halfway point, I was like settled down. I was like, okay, I get kind of what this movie's about. I see what it's doing,
and I'm hooked.
And I'm hooked. Yes, I was hooked. I think it's great. I like it.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad that you put so much stock in my word. And I say, watch this, it's good, and then your wife watches it and says, no, it's not.
Well, my wife was less kind to this film, let's say.
But this wasn't a total, well, we'll get to this later, but it wasn't a total, like it wasn't a parade of misogyny like usual, which is what I normally recommend.
I think she would have preferred that.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll knock off what happened in the movie, okay? So Phantom of the Paradise is about Winslow Leach, an out-of-work composer who has talent but can't seem to catch a break. So mega producer Swan, played by Paul Williams, hears his music by chance after Winslow sneaks into a concert show. Now, Swan is looking for the next big sound, right? So he wants the music that Winslow produces, but not the man. He's not interested in the man. So he decides to steal Winslow's epic rock cantata without Winslow's knowledge and begins auditioning young hopefuls to perform it at his rock palace, the Paradise, which is set to open soon. At an open audition, which turns out to be just a sleazy casting couch affair set up by Swan and his cronies, Winslow sneaks in and meets Phoenix, played by Jessica Harper, a starry-eyed ingenue whom he has immediate hot pants for. In order to get rid of Winslow, Swan has him beaten up, then framed as a drug pusher and sentenced to Sing Sing. And the humiliations don't stop there. Winslow has his teeth removed and replaced with steel dentures. After hearing about the gold record success of one of his songs being performed by one of Swan's bands, the Juicy Fruits, Winslow flips out and escapes prison. In trying to destroy the record press at Swan's main building, he's jumped by a guard and falls into the machine, suffering burns to his face. Now, deformed and flamboyantly dressed, Winslow haunts the paradise. First by trying to kill the Juicy Fruits by bomb, and then he finally confronts Swan, but the savvy producer offers him a deal he can't refuse. He says Winslow can finally see his music produced the way he wants and with the lead he wants, Phoenix. The creepy contract is signed in blood. Swan sets up Winslow in a studio, gives him an electronic voice box, and the music flows. But Swan sidelines Phoenix, resenting her suitability, or perfection rather, and instead hires an enigmatic glam rocker called Beef to perform Winslow's music. He steals the music again and seals Winslow up in his studio. Winslow escapes and threatens Beef, threatening him and saying, "Never play my music or you will die." So Beef tries to flee, but he's talked into staying. He performs wonderfully and is killed on stage by Winslow. In need of a performer, the team get Phoenix to perform, and she's a revelation. So we come to our final act. Swan seduces Phoenix and promises her stardom. Winslow confronts her, telling her to flee, but she's having none of it. Finally fulfilling her dreams, Winslow tries to kill himself with a knife, but it won't work because his soul is now entwined with Swan. The contract, which we now realize is supernatural, terminates with Swan. Winslow discovers that Swan himself made a deal with the devil in which he can remain young forever as long as the videotape of the contract exists. Swan is set to marry Phoenix, and Winslow storms the show. In a flurry, he unmasks Swan as a grotesque monster. Swan tries to kill Phoenix. Winslow kills Swan, ending his contract, which causes him to die in Phoenix's arms. Credits. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. What a ride. It's crazy.
Yeah, AJ.
Crazy. Good ride. It's a good ride. I really enjoyed it.
Well, did you... I mean, there's a lot to unpack.
There is.
I mean, I feel like I'm missing a lot of context. Do you know what I mean? Like, this film's from 1974. Now, that is almost 50 years ago. Now, you really do, but because, I suppose to a large extent, we grew up in the 90s or whatever, and the late 80s, you sort of think that 1974 is a little closer than it is. I read this the other day. It said that 1980 is now closer to 1939. Well, is the same distance from 1939 as 2021 is from 1980. So think about that. 1980 and 1939, we've now got that same gap between now and 1980, and this is even before that. So I really do feel like that this... How'd that make you feel, AJ? Good?
Fucking old.
Yeah, I know. But I just felt like this was from a completely different world. Like, so contextually I'm missing so much. Like, what the fuck is the paradise even? I mean, I know, but I know, Like, yeah. It's a concert hall. Like, we're all such housebound losers now. We were before COVID as a society, and now it's even worse. So the idea of going somewhere, to this sort of rock palace where they record and play music and groupies go there seems like just something I just cannot imagine. So what do we think? Did anyone have a similar experience?
Yeah, definitely.
It's definitely of its time, and that sort of experience people in the late 60s and early 70s were craving that sort of collective experience. And I mean, I've actually got quite a bit to say about this genre in general, which I don't know if we want to open it up now or talk a little bit more surface.
But what is the genre?
So the genre is basically a classical rock fusion. There were several of these sorts of experiments in the late 60s into the early 70s. And yeah, basically a couple of references, a couple of works that people might be familiar with is Deep Purple did a concerto for group and orchestra, which was performed in 1970. So that was basically like a violin concerto or a piano concerto, but the solo instrument essentially is Deep Purple. So Deep Purple with orchestra, and that was actually composed by John Lord, who was the organ player of Deep Purple, and it was actually quite a success, I think, because John Lord was quite the musician himself. And so there are other examples. You've got a band called Procol Harum, which I think
great
they were the
track.
first.
Hazy, what's their song called? Hazy
Yeah,
Shade
the
of
Whiter Shade of Pale.
Whiter Shade of Pale.
That's right. And so I think they're credited as being like the first rock band to ever play with an orchestra. Then another UK band called Barclay James Harvest, they actually employed their own orchestra and did gigs. So there was this sort of experimentation with form and with fusion of classical music, classical instrumentation with rock music. And
so just for context, are we saying that Paul Williams in Phantom of the Paradise, who did the music, are we saying that Winslow's music in the film is this genre?
It's closely tied to the genre for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I actually, when I was studying music, I actually wrote an honours thesis on a piece of music called Wings, which is a very amazing piece of music. It's actually a concept album, but it's a classical rock symphony. And Paul Williams actually wrote the text for that and worked with a composer, a French guy called Michel Colombier. And that's actually how I know of Paul Williams, was through that to begin with. So, but he's done a lot as a composer and a songwriter in his own right. But I think it's important to understand sort of the backdrop to these experiments, which was obviously the Vietnam War, which had extensive media coverage for the first time. The first time a war had that much sort of media coverage, especially on TV. Then you've got the space program, which gave sort of a sense of wonder and the ever-expanding influence of the USA. It was kind of America's endless fluid frontier, which also kind of symbolized the promise of democracy. Then you've got the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, which is the rebellious nature of the youth, railing against their parents' generation. But we also saw at this time as like the baby boom era saw an explosion in high school graduates and college students. And many of the musicians of that era, particularly those in the UK, went to art college. And so musicians like the Beatles, Frank Zappa, The Who, The Doors, and Deep Purple, they began to challenge the audience by working with more extended musical forms and drawing inspiration for their own compositions from classical music and also classical literature as well. So you can see the influence some of these bands by their names. So the band Big Brother, that comes from George Orwell's 1984, which was written in 1948. Then you've got The Doors, which comes from The Doors of Perception, the novel by Aldous Huxley. Stephen Wolfe comes from Herman Hesse's Stephen Wolfe from 1927. You got the Ides of March, which is a William Shakespeare, comes from Julius Caesar. And so from that, you get these musicians that are quite aware of art and literature, and they're coming of age and they're making their mark musically. So you get those artists that I just mentioned, Procol Harum, you get Barclay James Harvest, Deep Purple, also Tommy, the Rock Symphony, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. They were like a prog rock trio, and they got famous by doing classical, like rock renditions of classical music. Like they do Charles Ives Fanfare for the Common Man, which is a famous one. If you ever grew up in sort of the 80s and early 90s and you ever saw the start of a cricket match on TV, they'd play that. But I guess the reasons for rock groups kind of taking influence from classical music was prestige, really. So performers who don't really compose their own material, sort of like girl groups or Motown acts, they rarely get the critical respect that solitary composing geniuses would, But also fusing rock music with classical music is another way for young people of that time to rebel and stick it to their parents, I mean, that's the ultimate rebellion, is like, I'm going to take your stuffy classical music and I'm going to, rock it up a little bit. So that's sort of the background to this whole genre. And some are more orchestral and classical than others. So this one's sort of on the lighter side. It doesn't really have a big orchestral accompaniment, but in terms of the ambition and the form of it and the the more extended forms, the longer songs, that sort of thing. It's all drawn from this sort of place and this influence.
And I think I asked you this today, but like a very mainstream example of something that might be a little bit related to this, in that it's a concept album and has some of these features, could be Meatloaf's "Bad Out of Hell" and Jim Steinman, their album.
Yeah,
long songs, like big operatic sound, storytelling, all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So you've also got on the other side of the camp, you've got things like Metallica's S&M, which is basically them performing their songs with orchestral accompaniment, which is sort of, related but less interesting because they're basically just doing their songs but with an orchestra. I think it's more interesting when you have these more true collaborations or fusions of genres and of ensembles. I think it's more interesting.
Well, that's definitely a context I was missing. Like, because I watched this movie and I'm not sure what to make of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have some of the elements, maybe we'll talk about Rocky Horror later. It doesn't have some of the elements Rocky Horror's got that make it a little more, I don't know what the word is, timeless something. There's something that Rocky Horror's got. Maybe it's Frankenfurter or the sex. Maybe it's got some other stuff in it that whereas this is definitely more pure. And I just look at it and I'm like, and it's got such, this movie's got high profile fans. I want to love this movie. Something's holding me back. I don't know what it is. Interesting people like this movie.
Well, I think maybe because it's so it paints such a cynical view of the music industry. That's really what it is. It's a big parody and satire on the music industry. In a lot of ways, the music business of the mid to late 20th century is kind of favorable to 20th century internet age. I think
21st.
Sorry, the 21st century internet age, because
people who are getting screwed now will probably want Swan.
That's right. They want Swan. This is the whole, this, like, when I was viewing it, I was like, they're being very cynical about that time and about record producers and labels and that sort of stuff. But in a way, I think it's favorable. Well, there are arguments to say that it's favorable to what's happening now, because back then, record companies, they were big gatekeepers, but their wealth allowed them to take risks on new acts, So a band with a hint of something could get a 2 or 3 record deal, studio time, a producer, and that was all just to test the waters, to see how audiences would react. And there was an infrastructure there as well of audio engineers, studio musicians, arrangers. It was a
tangible product as well.
Yeah, tangible, a physical thing. There's marketing people, artwork departments. But now in the 21st century, access to home recording equipment and digital platforms to release music, it's allowed everybody to create a professional quality recording. And that's been revolutionary in that, it's sort of the gatekeepers of old have largely been eliminated. But it's, of course, a double-edged sword because now there's so much noise that it's hard even for really amazing music to break through and make a significant impact that would financially support artists to create their work, So there's no traditional barriers to music creation now, but the new barrier is income, There's just it's very hard to make money, And I don't know, which do you think is more favorable, the studio system of those days or the internet sort of age we're living in now?
Well, I jokingly say I like the old system better, but at least I suppose on balance, this system maybe makes more people happy because more people can do it. But because previously it made a small amount of people happy because they were allowed to make music, because you probably couldn't have even made music at all before. You know what I mean? Like you're just yourself. Whereas now at least you can do that.
That's right.
But it certainly has robbed the very, very, very good people of an incredible opportunity. Which what we used to do was find people who were very, very good, and polish them and make them legends. We don't do that. I would argue we don't really do that anymore. So we don't get that. What do you reckon, AJ?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
It's a bummer. It's a downer.
It's a fucking downer. Yeah. Look, I came in high.
Quick. Let's talk about something salacious.
Talk about
then.
beef.
Oh, Beefy. He was grand.
He was
I
good.
quite like Beef. He gets all the best lines.
That's right.
does,
oh,
yeah.
my God. And what lines they were.
You got anything?
No,
I got a couple.
I don't want to go too early.
Oh, okay,
Like
all
we've
right. Well,
got
so I'll do a small one. This is a very tiny one that he did. He just says, "Dry up, Tubbo."
I was waiting for the voice. That's what I needed. I couldn't do it.
I love his first appearance out of the coffin where they open up the coffin and he pulls his face.
Yes,
It's so amazing.
the face is amazing.
It
Like I never really got it. The second time I watched it, I was like, I understood his performance. He's the best thing about the movie, arguably.
Yeah.
He
Him and Swan though. I think Swan is very good.
Swan is good, but I feel like the funnest thing maybe. is
Yeah.
Beef.
For
Like,
sure.
He's got all the
for
best
sure.
lines, like just simple shit, like "What was that?" It's great. And masculine as well. Masculine and not.
And not. Yeah. Confusing.
Yes. Well, 2021. He's met the moment.
He has, yeah. Well, there's a lot of that going on. David Bowie,
Mm.
you know,
Your main man.
what, Prince?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is,
Yes.
well, I guess Prince, started in the late 70s.
If you enjoy what we do here on the New Flesh podcast, there are a number of ways you can contribute to the success of the show. Consider supporting us financially by becoming a Patreon member and donating monthly or yearly. Alternatively, you can donate money through the Buy Me a Coffee platform. If you're strapped for cash at the moment, there are other ways to support the New Flesh. You can give us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. These really do help others find our show and help spread the word. Or you can just simply tell your friends about us. Back to the show. So this movie is strange. I suppose we need to talk a little bit about Brian De Palma. So it's directed by Brian De Palma, I very much one of my favorite directors. So a director's director, technical master, Hitchcock disciple, movie brat generation. So, Ricky mentioned that in relation to the musos, that they were, going to college, reading up on the classics and sort of bringing that to their work. Well, in the 70s, we had a generation of filmmakers, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, a whole gang of them who were part of this movie brat generation of the new Hollywood, and they were raised on movies. They also, some of them studied or were associated with colleges, and so they were bringing a sort of a self-referential nature to the movies for the first genuine time. Critics of De Palma would say style over substance. They'd say he's a thief. They'd say he's a misogynist. Fans would say he's bold with style. They'd say he's got a sense of cinema history. They'd say he's transgressive, and that yes, he is indeed interested in women. And what's wrong with that? As we know now, that's disgusting and horrible, and we ought not do it. So we know the rules. The rules are simple. Don't do it. Don't do it.
So he's a bit like Tarantino in that way, then.
Absolutely, yeah. He's bold and ambitious, passionate, and
steals from
yes,
genres and
everything. Yeah. So in this film, he's got everything from Touch of Evil with that bomb in the car to Psycho, obviously, Dr. Caligari. We're borrowing from literature as well. We've got Dorian Gray and a number of other things. But De Palma masterworks, I would say, Scarface, Untouchables, Blowout, Carrie, Obsession, brilliant films, brilliant, amazing films. The rest, frustrating but brilliant. Films with flaws, but are absolutely have got their own shining stuff. Casualties of War, Carlito's Way, Dressed to Kill, Raising Cain, The Furies, The Fury, and Body Double. Noble Failures, Femme Fatale, Bonfire of the Vanities. The list goes on. So, when his eye meets the right script, it's magic. And when he's one step removed, so he's written this film. So this is him being a real auteur, But I think he's at his best when he's got someone else's script. So generally speaking, Blowout, he's written Blowout, which is great. But Carrie, Obsession, Untouchables, and Scarface are all different writers, and I think his work really meets them beautifully. So, but here we get, this is unfiltered, and he's actually trying to say something here. This is like he's actually saying that like this somewhat resembled his experience of going to studios with original ideas, and this was sort of his experience of being, used and abused and shot down and lied to and whatever. So I guess it depends on to what degree you believe him or you care about that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To get involved with this story. I mean, Ricky, did you feel anything about Winslow's plight?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, because tales of this sort of stuff are legendary. I mean, there's all the studios that knocked back the Beatles. There's Meatloaf couldn't find a label that would release Bat Out of Hell. The stories are everywhere of people getting fucked over. I mean, if you've ever seen that movie Searching for Sugarman, I mean, that guy sold more records in Africa than Elvis did, and he never saw a cent of it. His label never gave him any money. So, and he didn't even know he was a big success in certain parts of the world. So, those stories are everywhere. But what I think is also interesting is this movie. It really paints it paints the audience really the music listening and consuming audience as pretty moronic and willing to be fed whatever Swan serves up to them, So he's got his
juicy fruits.
He's got his juicy fruits, which are, they're this sort of doo-wop 50s band that morph into whatever new nostalgic band he wants them to be. Then they turn into like a Beach Boys incarnation, and then after that it's like a glam rock thing, and they basically just morph into whatever he wants them to be. It is very funny, and the songs are actually really catchy too. Especially
they're amazing.
The sort of the Beach Boys one is very, very funny too. So yeah, I think that's interesting. Like the crowds are just, fawning over Swan. Anything Swan does, it's amazing. And I guess in a way that mirrors that more 1950s and into the 60s sort of very consumerist listener, that just listens to top 40 and is just served whatever the record labels put out.
Maybe I'm outing myself as an old man, but like if you go on, I am a TikTok user, so and I'm not I'm not judgmental of it at all. I think it is a legitimate thing to be doing, for better or worse. But if you go on TikTok, all of the songs, because Katie recently was like, she's having to work with some younger people, and she's like, I don't want to be an old lady who just has no idea what's going on. So I've been listening to like top 40 or whatever. And it's interesting. The Spotify top 40 is just all the songs from TikTok.
Oh,
so
really?
Well, yeah, pretty much. Because she played a bunch of them for me. I went, oh, this is a TikTok song. Oh, that's another one. Oh, that's another one. So Isn't that strange? Like, well, it's not strange. I guess it is what it is. Like, there's all this talk of there being like a whole new paradigm, but is there? Isn't there just a new Swan? Isn't Swan just
an algorithm?
Well, it is an algorithm, but you can't tell me that all those TikTok songs are the best songs ever, and you can't tell me that the ones that Spotify is saying are the best songs that are right now. They've been chosen, curated, and they're in cahoots. Those two things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess in a way it is very much like Swan. Swan, he owns the acts. He releases the music through his label, Death Records, and it's kind of similar. You've got Spotify, this big multinational tech company, and you've got the algorithms that push certain things to people, and it's very similar.
Yeah. Well,
I love the juicy fruits though. They're very cool.
Goodbye, Eddie. Goodbye. Hey, did you guys notice? Did you notice him when he hits the high notes, pulling his balls down at the beginning? Did you notice that? So the lead singer, when he hits the high notes, he keeps like adjusting his balls.
It's great.
I noticed him shooting up with the microphone cord.
That's great. That was cool.
How good was that? The start was amazing just to get us in.
Well, it's different from the script too. You have a little thumb through of the script, and the first scene in the script is a tiny scene in the film. I don't know if you remember it, but it's the woman who's in her 30s or late 30s who says she knew Swan when he was in high school. That was actually the first scene.
Oh.
and which I thought was interesting. And so his name was Dorian in the script.
Yeah.
But they've done what you have to do with cinema, which is fucking start with a bang. So, it's like with this actually works. It's not a strange reference, but because I'll tell you why in a second. But Star Wars Episode 4, or rather, as it was just called, Star Wars back in the day, the first one. We begin with that, with the cruiser going straight over the camera. We're straight in. Now, why do I reference Star Wars? Because the same editor edited this film, Paul Hirsch.
Oh.
So he knows what he's doing. So who knows? I'm sure they shot that scene. I'm sure they put it in there. And someone like him would have just been, fuck that. Let's get right into it. Let's do it. Let's have the juicy fruits,
Mm.
Well, did you notice the strange sort of optical overlays of the record label?
I did.
Yeah.
Weird.
So that's there for a reason, because the label was originally called Swan Song Records, but Led Zeppelin had a record label called, I think it was just called Swan Records. But basically Led Zeppelin threatened to take them to court and sue them. So they actually thought they'd have a good chance to win, because the term swan song is quite, it's a well-used sort of term in English parlance. So, but they just didn't want to chance it, so they ended up changing it to Death Records.
You can still see swan song here and there.
You can, yeah, if you look closely enough. Yeah, which is a little bit shitty to see those. I mean, nowadays you just VFX that shit out, but you can tell it looks like something's been plastered over.
Henry Cavill's mustache in Justice League. Yeah, I mean that looked fine, right, AJ?
Right.
Has that been CG'd in or CG'd out?
No, CG'd out, and it's possibly the most terrifying sort of footage you've ever seen. Like his mouth won't stop moving. Like I don't understand. So they've paid someone like a 12-year-old kid, like $30, and said, "Oh, just I don't know, do what you can." You wouldn't know that the biggest companies in the world have done it, and it's terrible. Or because he wasn't allowed to shave his mustache because he was shooting one of the Mission Impossible movies or something. So
it's dumb.
We still haven't solved why I have a problem with this movie. I'm getting more on board as we go. I mean, Daft Punk like it, so
I love it.
That's the reason why they wear helmets.
I mean, that's big. They're French, right?
Didn't they meet at a screening of it?
They did. Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
that
they did.
Is too much Phantom of the Paradise for me. Like that's too much. They love the helmet. They've been there at a screening. They're like, hey, don't you think this movie is good? Yes. Who do you like? I like beef. I like beef too. Maybe we'll make a music. Yes. Around the world, around the world, around. So that's how it went.
Well, they later collaborated with Paul Williams on a Grammy award-winning album. So it was all meant to be. It was all thanks to this movie.
Well, Paul Williams has said he's like, don't write anything off because no one liked it at the time, and it's actually given him a lot of strange benefits over the years.
Well, this was a huge failure at the time, except in one place, and that is, what is it, Winnipeg in Canada?
That's crazy.
That's where I've got it in my notes here somewhere. Yeah, it was huge there, and it played for months. So I don't understand how it's like one little geographical place in North America that just went nuts for it. What's in the water over there?
Well, I don't know.
What are they seeing that no one else got at the time?
I don't know. Well, because everyone else was too busy, a bit later watching Rocky Horror. That had way more cut through, arguably. But they just loving it. They had the big screenings of it, into the 80s or whatever.
I think you're right. It's too pure. The creepy cuddle, his creepy eye always looking at us.
Yeah.
And his metal teeth.
Yeah.
I love his voice too. They've Darth Vadered him, because he's lost his voice in his accident with the record press.
Well,
and
actually, Darth Vader has been Winslowed.
Yeah, that's right.
The timeline. think
Yeah.
Paul Hirsch was on Star Wars and he said, I got a great idea. I got a great idea.
Yeah,
George.
make it sound like this.
We did it on a different movie. So that's actually a good segue. So, AJ's might have tipped her hand a little bit, but this is Keeper or Creeper.
Yes.
So first up, we have Garrett Graham as Beef, so he works out, a successful musician. He seems to have a sensitive side, if you know what I mean.
He wouldn't be into me. He's a flaming homo.
I'm just Hey, I was just sort of saying that he's, just the wedding night might not be all you want it to be.
Look, and me saying that was pretty tame as compared to some of the lines in this movie.
Oh, yes, that's so true. Comes up later, but I believe Swan has a great little line that we'll be saying in a second. So that's Beef. As I say, he is as he is. So what do we say about Beef? Keeper or Creeper?
Creeper. He's got a picture of himself up in his dressing room.
I love the stuff you look for. I sort of pictured that, but I was just like, because we're guys, we only interpret, we can only look at guys the way we would look at guys. Do you know what I mean? We're not chicks. We look at guys and we go, oh yeah, he looks fucking hell sick. Looks, he's got a good body and all that. Whereas we're not looking for that. That you looked at that and you were like, he's a narcissist, right? Yeah.
And the guy called him Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
He's got a very close relationship with his mother too.
Yeah.
Tinkerbell, that would be human rights violation now. If you called someone Tinkerbell.
Where are you going, Tinkerbell?
It's crazy. People would just be like, you are 100% cancelled. So, all right. Next up, we have Paul Williams as Swan. He's also the Phantom singing voice. Seriously successful record producers, like, I'm talking, Pharrell Williams. He's right up there. Okay, wheeler dealer, rich, talented, smooth. He's not tall.
No.
Okay, so that is what it is. But as I've said, he's quite monomaniacal and good at what he does. So, and I think he'll show you a good time. I'm fairly certain. Keeper or Creeper?
I have his official height.
Okay. How high is
5 foot.
Okay, so it's a short thing. I just thought his head was weird. I thought he might have been premature. Thought he might have been a preemie baby. Are we going to get cancelled over that?
I haven't heard preemie babies complain at all. I think do you know what? All the ones that I know are just buzzed to be here. You know what I mean? They're usually quite happy people. They're like, no, I'm cool. So anyway, okay, that's Creeper. I thought it would be, because this is tricky, because as we know, AJ, women are, as far as I know, drawn to success objects, but the height thing is a problem.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is.
He's strange looking.
Yes, but, sometimes I think that can be forgiven.
Yeah. I don't know about the round bed.
No,
That's a lot.
What do you think of a man with a round bed? I think it was meant to be a waterbed too in the script. But I don't know whether it was in the movie.
No, I thought it was just a moving round bed.
Do you like a round bed?
No, not really.
It's sort of an Austin Powers
Definitely.
thing, the round bed that he gets on.
Orgy kind of thing.
Yeah, it is an orgy thing, isn't it?
Why is it
easy access at any angle?
Yeah.
Oh, no sleeping.
No.
Now I get it. I've never known why you have. But what's the spinning about? Why do these fucking beds?
I know. It's so the people who like to watch can also get all the angles.
You clearly outed yourself as one of those people. So people allegedly can get a better view of that ass as it's spinning around like a rotisserie chicken. All right. So Next up, finally, we have William Finley as Winslow Leach, also the Phantom. Passionate, penniless, and soulful. Maybe a little intense, but that's his charm, okay? He's dogged. When he goes after something, really makes it happen. He's a very, very, very skilled songwriter. He is hideously deformed, though. Oh, and look, this is another small thing, AJ, but he, just between you and me, he might have killed a few cunts. As well.
That eye, I couldn't get over it. It was just always looking at me and I was grossed out by it. Big green eye. I think it's going to give me nightmares.
So what would you be willing to forgive? The killing, maybe, the deformed thing, maybe, but it's the eye that sort of...
It's the eye. Their hug was terrible. He was kind of sniffing her.
That was when he wasn't even gross, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Yes.
He's got very fine hair as well.
He kind of looks like Stephen Merchant.
A little bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But do you think his Phantom look was an improvement on what he was before?
Maybe.
I think it was.
That's big. That's big.
The singing was great. He was a great songwriter, though.
Okay. Keeper or creeper?
Creeper.
well, that's a sweep. That's a sweep, a creeper sweep.
I haven't had a keeper yet, I don't think.
No, well, as I said, I want the keepers to be special. I don't want them to be. So you can't just go, oh yeah, like I'll throw the Swan a shot.
Throw a bone.
Throw him a bone.
Well, the guy from Basic Instinct, he came close. Gus.
Oh, Gus.
He was the closest.
Gus came dangerously close.
Yeah, he did.
That says a lot about me.
We've got to talk. Gus was not, boyfriend material.
No.
So we need to talk about that.
I feel like I've outed myself.
Great stuff.
Poor Frank.
Poor Frank.
What do we think of Paul Williams as Swan?
I really liked it when he was young Swan.
In the bath.
And when he does young Swan, it was one of those moments. This can happen, it happened in a film with John Wayne when he did True Grit, or was it Rooster Cobra? One of the two. People realized that he was acting the whole time previously. Do you know what I mean? And this was a case in this movie. When I saw him in the bath, I was like, oh, he's acting like the other role. He's actually putting that on. Like he was actually too good. I thought that he might be a little bit like Swan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's just when they just sort of captured it.
Yeah.
As you sometimes you can with cinema, you get a big personality. You sort of say just be yourself. But no, he was acting, and so I like young Swan, and I thought he certainly exudes. Even when I didn't know who he was at all, I used to watch this movie and go, man, that guy is bigger than this movie. I could tell he was the biggest thing in the movie.
Yeah. Even though he's 5 foot.
There it is again. Heightism.
Well, I did type into Google earlier today, is Paul Williams a midget?
Oh.
And it hasn't been confirmed.
The M word.
I think he's just a short man.
Yeah, 5 foot's a short man.
But do people come at you hard for the word midget, or is it one of those ones where people...
You've got to say little person now, I think.
How hard do they come? It's not R word.
No, it's definitely not R word.
R word is like people come hard at you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the F word?
Oh. That word, I don't think people would even know what F word we're talking about.
Well, I think I should tell them. I'll tell them because, and I'll quote it from the movie. There's a scene when Winslow, goes to try to sneak into Swan's, building, and he's in the harem. That's right. And he's with all these women, and Swan comes out and looks down at Winslow, who's dressed in a dress, and he says, "Get this fag out of here." It was so just like fucking brutal, like just a 6-shooter, just bang. So I quoted that, and I don't care what anyone says.
Well, in the start, when the what's that guy's name? Swan's guy.
Oh,
Philbin.
Philbin. Yeah.
When he says free concerts for gook orphans.
Yes.
Oh, I missed that. When did he say that?
He
At the
says that
very
about
start when he's talking to the camera.
He's talking to the camera about
Oh,
Annette,
yeah.
their previous ingenue, and he says,
Mm.
you know, that they gave her everything, they built her up to be a star. It's actually similar to the speech that the producer gives in The Godfather. The guy gets a horse in his bed. He gives a similar speech. He goes, you know, she was the best piece of ass I ever had. So he says something similar here. He says, you know, as well as the G word, which he says, which is amazing. He says, the judge called us a disgrace to the profession. A disgrace, he said. I was the one who made her the money grubbing whore she was, and she calls me a disgrace. Money grubbing whore.
Yeah, so lines that would never be put in movies these days.
That's the thing. It was actually they bleeped out. The word they bleeped out though was I told her how to dress, what to do, who to screw, or whatever, or who to fuck, and that's what Philbin says, and there's like mic feedback that sort of artfully cuts out that word.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's quite clever, but then by our standards today, you know, saying fag and gook, like those are DEFCON 4 words. Like those words are like, if those words are said, like I've just said them, so already the algorithm's out to get me. There's already nanobots. There's already nanobots going up my pecker to do something, shut me down or whatever. And so they are totally DEFCON 4 words, and like, but they bleeped out like the most, you know, they're like, yeah, so anyway, Mo, that's too much, get rid of that word. Anyway, get out of here, fag. Oh, gook, blah, blah, blah. And you go, Jesus.
And let's have a rape scene.
Yes. That scene is quite something. You know.
Yeah.
So
it's when all the girls are getting auditioned, right? And they are let in one by one. But you only kind of just see momentarily behind the doors before they're closed.
But I wonder what that would have been almost 50 years ago to people. Like, you know, because it's so beyond the joke now. We know you sort of intuitively knew it to be true, and then after Harvey Weinstein, you're sort of like, oh, definitely true, and more truer than we ever knew. And so I wonder what that sort of idea would have meant to just a standard person in Winnipeg in 1974. Do you know what I mean? Like, would they watch that and gone, oh, is that really what goes on in Hollywood? Or would they just go, oh, of course, that's what goes on in Hollywood?
How upsetting is it though that you've got to fuck the roadies? Like, you're not even fucking Swan.
Well, there was I believe this, you know, there was a philosopher. What did he say once? He said, ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. Ain't you? All right. I believe that's how it went. They're just getting a bit of runoff, you know?
But you're going there thinking that you at least fucking Swan. And then you get...
But Swan does get involved at one point.
Yeah.
It does, but it was...
For the creme de la creme.
Philbin and the dirty roadies that we get in action.
I thought it was very clever, though, the way, how quick it was, and that scene was...
It was the opposite of Showgirls.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the opposite of
They
Showgirls.
were like in and out. Yeah. Well, no, because they actually sort of made it. It was actually, dare I say, relatively tasteful because, you know, it was very theatrical.
Yeah.
You know, the door opens and they get on top, but it wasn't like, there wasn't any grotesque details.
No.
You know, where you were just like, oh, fuck. Like, you know, like stop doing that. Stop showing me that stuff.
Yeah.
So you got it where it didn't like take over the movie.
No.
But I found Swan to be quite menacing and a little bit scary.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah. Just, I don't know. Even though he's physically a small man, something about him is creepy.
Again. He can't control that, you know. That's not... Anyway, moving on. But wait, were you scared of him before the supernatural turn or just overall?
No, I just thought he was... I could just tell he was evil, and that maybe I didn't notice to begin with that there'd be some supernatural element to him, but that he was a mean dude, you know.
He has an aura about him.
He does, yeah.
Well, he did that. Maybe his part of his charm as well is that, part of his aura is you can tell he smashed a lot of birds.
Yeah.
and done a lot of drugs. Like that it just is sort of radiating off him.
He was rock star, definitely.
Yes. Like he had that calm about him. He wanted for nothing. His only problem is like getting sober and stuff. Like it's not like, having a good time or nailing birds. That's not a problem for him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he didn't give a fuck really about Winslow at all.
No, he was a piece of shit.
Oh, Winslow.
Yes. So this movie's grown. I've read something interesting. I'll read a bit of it out. It's from Cinephilia and Beyond. It's by a guy called Sven Mikulek. So this is just about the film's sort of growth after it came out, which I think was interesting. In Brian De Palma's entire career, his 1974 musical horror film Phantom of the Paradise is perhaps the one work of art most difficult to categorize in any drawers. A film piece so puzzling, chaotic, and uncanny, it's literally impossible to be forgotten. It may very well be true that upon its release, De Palma's sixth feature film got butchered by the critics with a few honourable exceptions. And it's a simple fact it failed to meet 20th Century Fox's box office expectations. Fuck, how much money did that think it was going to make, really? Phantom of the Paradise was successful practically only in Paris and Winnipeg. The unorthodox mixture of genres, more or less obvious subtlety in the delivery of the material, and the inability of the distributor to adequately and efficiently promote the picture due to its impossibility to wear a simple label of a horror or a musical proved simply too much for the audience in 1974. However, De Palma's Unwanted Baby slowly started to attract and nurture a cult following, people usually cringing at the sight of films like The Towering Inferno, one of the greatest hits of 1974. In the following years, Phantom of the Paradise started receiving more positive reviews, helping build the dominant opinion that the film's contemporary audience and critics were unfair and somewhat blind to all the delights hiding in De Palma's probably weirdest film to date. To what degree people loved the movie can it be easily seen in the fact that in 2005, the fans organised a festival called Phantom Palooza, which still continues to occur every year or so. The fantastic Paul Williams, a renowned composer who not only created the score for the movie, but also starred in two of the most important roles, watched its reputation grow with pride. So it goes on and on. So that's interesting. That show talks about how it's... well, it's actually got another big fan here. Guillermo del Toro says he considers this deranged, romantic, unique film with a perfect soundtrack one of his most beloved films ever. The film was rejected and trashed only to rise like a phoenix and cement its place in the collective minds of film lovers around the world. Edgar Wright is also a big fan of this movie, and maybe we're getting to the crux of perhaps why I don't, love it as much as I perhaps should. Edgar Wright did Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Baby Driver.
New movie out now?
Yes.
Soho?
I don't mind the man. I hate his movies. I hate his movies, AJ. I hate them.
Really?
And I don't say that lightly. I hate his movies, and I don't like them. They're bad. They're not good, and I don't get it. Shaun of the Dead is not as good as the people who watch it want it to be. Hot Fuzz, just watch Hard Boiled instead. Don't bother. Baby Driver was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It was like his iPod playlist that he listens to, and he's like, "Oh, I'll make a movie to it, and everyone will love it. It's really cool." It was stupid. Okay.
Scathing.
Yeah, it wasn't good. So anyway, that's a problem, and he goes on about this movie the most.
Right,
so he's sort of like the main cheerleader of this movie. It's the opposite. When QT tells me to watch something, I'm like, oh yes, this is going to be great.
I wonder what QT thinks.
He'd be into it. He's always loved De Palma, but but then again, he wouldn't. I'm not going to speak for the man, but I know he loves Blowout, and I would prefer Blowout over this movie. There's a bunch of other movies. Well, I prefer all those ones I mentioned: Blowout, Carrie, Obsession, over this movie. This movie's like all the stuff in this movie is in those other movies. Funnily enough, almost every little thing in this movie is in another movie. Even the assassination attempt that happens at the end is in Snake Eyes later on, or the silent, and the guy who does the assassination is basically like the same character in Scarface. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but it's just a frustrating film. But I did, the second time I watched it today, I really was starting to plug into it. I was like, yeah, I think I'm starting to get this now. And I was starting to feel the tragic nature of the story, and starting to feel a little something. But I must ask though, Ricky, is the music is it good? Is this music good?
Yeah, it's not totally my bag. Like there's parts of it that like the start of the cantata where the guys come out sort of in a bit of Kiss makeup and like I love what they're doing theatrically. Like they have these swords on the end of their guitars and they're like slow-moing.
That's cool.
That was cool.
Arms off. That is very cool. But the music behind it, I'm like, oh, it's just kind of generic rock music.
Yeah,
It was
okay,
like-
but get this, okay. Some people, so there's this whole thing about Rocky Horror Picture Show and this movie, and the people who are big defenders of this movie always trot out, they're like, oh, why do people love Rocky Horror so much and everything. Now, look, if I need to tell you why the time warp is fucking boss, then we got a problem, bro. Like, that is a killer track, whether you've seen the movie or not. And it makes it would make a mortuary assistant dance. It would make anyone dance and do the fucking dance. You know what I mean? As they do it in the movie. And Tim Curry's performance is incredible. It's better than the movie. It's the best thing about the movie. In fact, the movie can fuck off except for him. You know, like, so
I think in this movie the ballads are the best part musically.
yes.
So the ballads are very good, but the up-tempo ones, with the exception of what the Juicy Fruits do, because I think like the Beach Boys track they do is amazing, and the other 50s track they do is very good as well. But yeah, I get what you mean. Like the dance, what should be the really dancey numbers, they're a bit lackluster, I think.
But you're right, and maybe that's why this is a bit of a bummer and a downer. And those slower tracks remind me of those best songs of the 70s. You know, those sort of Elton John, those long ballads. You know, with a bit of an intellectual bent and interesting lyrics, and you know they've got this sort of this gravitas about them, and I totally get that, and maybe that's why people don't. One of the reasons they don't flock to this is because, you know, they enjoy the time warp and they enjoy Touch Me and all those songs in Rocky Horror Picture Show, and they feel like it's a party. Whereas here, at the end of the day, this is a downer. No one likes a downer. You know, and the message is stark at the end. It's like it's saying you're going to have everything taken away from you, and then you're going to die and not get what you want. It's
sort of got the visual pyrotechnics, if you will, of Rocky Horror. Like it looks amazing, it's colourful, the costumes are crazy as hell, but the music is a downer.
and the people are just losing it. Like they're trying to have a good time, but it doesn't kind of fit.
Oh, you mean the people in the audience?
Yeah.
Well, what do they know? They love whatever Swan does.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right, idiots.
But like one of the best,
you could fart into the mic and they'd love it.
One of the best scenes with them was the crowd cheering for Phoenix, and when they were taking Beef's body out.
Yeah, beef.
Yeah.
Beef.
That was incredible.
That was good, actually. Yes, I really did love that. Like his whole story, I got a lot more now. And like he's dead, and there's a great line about that too. Like he says, "How often has a star fried on stage?" And then Swan's like, "It's an attraction."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, that's true."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just look at recently Astro World. Travis Scott, you know, like fucking 8 people get crushed, and it's just a spectacle. You know? It's all part of the spectacle.
Yeah, it's incredible. And even with stars that die, and then there's news coverage for 24 hours or whatever, and you fully see them get taken out.
Or in Aaliyah's case, 20 years.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. This chick is still being like held up as you know, the day the music died.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, that
longer than Michael Jackson.
Yeah, well, you know, there's some other stuff that might get in the way of that.
Yeah, I know. but all the salacious stuff that came out, like that his doctor said afterwards, like
Conrad. Do you mean Conrad? What's his face saying? I used to hold his dick every night while he took a piss.
Yeah, that's right.
That stuff. That's when you know you've made it.
That's
when
right.
When you've made it, you take enough barbiturates and opioids and whatever that a doctor who you have just paid like some sort of hourly rate holds your member while you take a piss and gives you every night what you refer to as your milk.
Milk. Imagine him in
milk.
his voice saying
milk.
that. Milk.
No, apparently that voice wasn't real though.
Really?
Well, Eddie says it wasn't real. Chris Tucker, I think, has said something similar. Like it's not real. Like he sort of can speak a bit hood.
Oh, really? You never hear him do that.
Yeah, no. Well, it's he. By the way, he wasn't a white man in 1980 either. I saw a picture of him the other day, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this man really did do some stuff to himself.
Yeah.
Like there's no. I don't care what he said. There was really a lot that he had to do.
Yeah, like when he says he only had 2 nose jobs to help him hit the high notes,
And you go, yeah, you really did. He did look like a boomer woman. At the end.
Yeah. But I watched the this is off topic now, but I watched the Thriller little the long version video clip of Thriller the other day, and just looking at Michael Jackson and that, I'm like, he looks like he's got black paint on his face though.
Oh.
Like he always used to, like the argument about his vitiligo was that, it got so bad that he ended up, because he was blacking up a little bit to cover that, but it got so bad that he had to go the other way and he had to whiten up. That was always the thing he said.
Is it possibly that he's a liar?
But that's
he's a fucking liar.
Exactly. Well, that's what I thought.
Went to a doctor. And the doctor bleached him. And the doctor bleached him every day for 20 years. That's what happened because he's a liar.
Well, that's what I always thought. But then when I saw Thriller again, I was like, you know what? He looks like he's wearing a lot of black makeup.
You know what
on,
it is?
So
the music's so wicked that it's you kind of want to believe anything he says.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I'm just kind of a bit like, the music's so wicked, you're like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he does have that weird disease.
Yeah.
And you just become a white woman at the end of your life.
And it's cool that he lets kids sleep in his bed. He's
you
just
know,
a weird guy.
Don't be judgmental. The hard left say that we should be just more, accepting of people's, preferences.
Well, there's a term for that now. It's minor attracted people.
Ah, yes. There you go.
So don't you dare call them pedophiles.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway. All right. Well, okay. I got some charges to lay down on this movie. Okay. So there's only a couple though, because we've gone through a bunch of it already. So first up on the Me Too meter, we have What a Drag. Winslow dresses up as a groupie and joins the harem. Swan replies, get this fag out of here. No one wins here, okay? So Swan's a homophobe, but Winslow is also queer baiting, He's not a stunning and brave he, she with a lady dick at all. He's a cis white male merely using women's clothes to pretend to be a woman. So if he wasn't a bigot, but if it wasn't a real bigot, then he'd have it all lopped off down there, is what I have to say. Next up, Juicy Fruits. The Juicy Fruits are rapists.
Yes.
A member leaps in the first scene upon a woman in the opening number. As I say, he brandishes her bra as a trophy. Real Neanderthal. So there you go. Casting couch, Phoenix and all the other hopefuls attend a casting couch audition, most likely resembling the process of the movie itself, probably. So there's a little quote from that harem as well. He likes to watch us. Doing what? Doing each other, the girls say. And I bet he does. So that's good, is it? So Ricky, watching women get it on together, that's good, is it? Is that hot and sexy, is it?
Oh, yeah.
I agree. So next up, Philbin talks to Linda. You got a nice body. We want to see some skin. Okay. That was a nice little grab I caught there. That's a girl in the bikini. So that's just Philbin being a pig. Beef's butt grab in his final number. Did you see Beef? He gooses a chick real good.
Oh, I did not miss that.
See, I'm here to inform you of these crimes as they occur. So next time you watch it, you watch for that. Like he really does go boink on one of those showgirls who's going past. So that's enough to really, really get you taken care of today.
Well, that confuses me now.
Well, all the best predators sort of, hold up a bit of a, I don't know, queer facade, don't they? And then they sort of hold that up and go, I'm a bit sensitive, and did you go to Mardi Gras last night? And then they take it out in front of you, AJ, and they say, what do you think of that? So next up, Phoenix rises. One hint of success is enough to make Phoenix reject all her principles, agreeing to do anything for fame. Are we to believe that there are women out there who have knowingly had sex with powerful men and kept quiet about it in order to achieve success? I don't believe it for a second. Gwyneth Paltrow is just a really good actress. So, AJ, you've heard the charges, okay? And I suppose the only thing going for this movie is that they say it's satire, but sometimes that's just used as a cover, you know? So what do we rate this out of 10 on our Me Too meter?
Well, now that you've said all that, I was going to go in pretty low.
Okay.
So maybe
what were you going to give it?
I was going to give it probably a 3, but now I feel a bit bad, so I'll go to a 5.
A 5? That's significant. Ricky?
No, I was thinking more like a 3 or a 4. 3.5.
Okay.
I feel like you could say
I think we're perverts.
Yeah. That's true. But if we showed this and Basic Instinct, wouldn't people say that Basic Instinct's worse? Not just anyone, like the woke people we're talking about. I suppose the fact that this is satire. See, this movie is actually attempting to do something good. It's it has that casting couch scene, and it's saying this is terrible, and it's saying that this is how and all the bad people did all the bad stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it could be on the lower end, I think, and because the main crimes were total societal norms, like saying the word fag, for instance, and whatnot. A couple of things that were, for better or worse, or what everyone was doing. What the guy at the newsagent was saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they'd be like, when did the papers are late this morning? When are them fags getting here? That's what they would say. AJ. Okay. I don't know. I don't know where this city is. I'm saying, but anyway, I think it's around 3 or 4. But as we know, you can never really get 0. Never.
No, that's true.
No,
because there are always, and some of the people we're talking about would watch this and just again they would just say, that there's not enough of A, B, and C or whatever in it, so you can't win.
So AJ, do you have any notable quotes?
I don't actually.
I've got a couple written down here. When I think Winslow says to one of the girls on the staircase, "You're kidding, right? Do I look like a kidder?" I like that one.
So simple.
Yeah.
Do I look like a kidder?
She looked like a bitch, that lady.
And the other one I have here is, if you can sing standing up, you can sing lying down.
Yeah, so I love that whole scene. I love it, all the dialogue. I agree politically with everything. Socially, politically, sexually. Moving on.
All right, let me hit you with some trivia. Obviously, Led Zeppelin, they threatened to sue them because of the record label thing. But the movie was subject to several other lawsuits, including one from the estate of the Phantom of the Opera and another from Marvel Comics for the use of the Phantom, because they have, the superhero, the Phantom. So the studio that Swan sets up for Winslow is an actual studio. It's called the Record Plant, and all the knobs and wires are part of a huge Moog synthesizer.
It made me so happy to realize that was real. Like I looked at when I first saw it, I was like, oh, geez, that's such a cool studio. And the fact that it exists, I was just like, yes. Good.
Well, heaps of artists have used that, like Stevie Wonder, Weather Report, loads of other people.
Oh, wow.
Have been in there and done stuff. So
wonderful.
It is good, isn't it? So the record press in which the Phantom was disfigured was a real pressing plant. It was an injection molding press at a toy company. The press was fitted with foam pads, which resemble the casting molds in the press. And there were chocks put in the center to stop it from closing completely. So I guess chocks are just, pieces of wood pretty much.
Alec Baldwin.
Yes. And unfortunately, the machine was too powerful. It was powerful enough to crush the chocks. So it gradually kept closing. And it was the actor's speed and timing that saved him from being seriously hurt as he got his head just out in time.
Jesus Christ.
So, and his scream in the scene was in fact not acting.
Oh,
so
terrifying.
So yeah, in the original screenplay of The Phantom of the Paradise, the villainous character Swan was named Spectre. and that character was loosely based on record producer Phil Spector.
Yeah, the draft I had a little bit of a read. He was called Dorian, so he's had a few names.
He has,
Sounds of it,
yeah. And I mentioned this earlier, but the film was a box office flop the year it came out. The only place in North America where it wasn't was in Winnipeg, Canada, where it stayed on the screens for months.
So it only cost them $1 million to make. How much was the box office?
Oh, less than that.
Right.
I don't have the figures in front of me.
And I think, when they don't tell you, it means they blew it.
Terrible.
Yeah. I wonder if it's made its money back over the years through like rent,
ancillary sales. Oh, of course it would. Yeah, of course. Totally.
I was unable to find an Ebert review of this.
Oh.
So maybe Ebert was on holidays when this came out. I'm not sure. So I've gone to Siskel instead. So Gene Siskel gave the film 2 stars out of 4, writing that what's up on the screen is childish. It has meaning only because it points to something else. To put it another way, joking about the rock music scene is treacherous because the rock music scene is itself a joke.
Oh.
Siskel.
So
profound.
Downer.
Pauline Kael of the New York Times was positive, stating, though you may anticipate a plot turn, it's impossible to guess what the next scene will look like or what its rhythm will be. De Palma's timing is sometimes wantonly unpredictable and dampening, but mostly it has a lift to it. You practically get a kinetic charge from the breakneck wit he put into Phantom. It isn't just that the picture has vitality, but that one can feel the tremendous kick the director got out of making it.
Pauline Kael, very special. We'll never get one like her again. She was very mercurial, and her word meant something. Like really meant something. She was scathing, and there's that. Remember that in The Doors, there's a sort of a hateful reviewer woman in one scene. Yeah, and Oliver Stone's based her sort of on Pauline Kael.
Right.
So she was, she was a big fan of De Palma's work. So, a lot of his films that were sort of, as I say, noble failures, or, people didn't get it or whatever, she was right on board, and which is amazing because she I've got a couple of books of hers, and maybe I'll showcase some of her work sometime. But yeah, beautiful writer, and really reflective of a very different time in history when the words of reviewers mattered, and also the reviewers were sort of rock stars in and of themselves in many ways.
That review makes me want to go and watch it again after we finish.
Do you know what? That is exactly what a good review can and should do. And that, I think that's the absolute highest praise you can give. And, I know we just trashed Siskel, but Siskel, here's a great example of that. Siskel is the person who I suppose it was almost 20 years ago now, that got me to love Saturday Night Fever.
Right.
Because he loved Saturday Night Fever, and he's written beautifully about it, and so has Ebert. And I rewatched it because of their review. But all the best reviewers can make you reconsider, and they should get you, obviously, if something needs tearing down, it needs tearing down, whatever. But generally speaking, the best reviews are those ones that get you to rethink, reconsider, rewatch, and you really do. It can unlock an entire film for you. The right review. You just go, oh yes, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, it's magical.
So I hope our musings have done that for people today. Like our talk of Michael Jackson's penis. All of that helps you enjoy yourself a bit more in your life.
I'd love to talk more about Michael on this show. I think it'd be great.
Well, why don't we watch how we can do it? What we do is we watch Moonwalker.
Right.
And maybe that gross documentary.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. Hey, I've seen that documentary.
So have I, a couple of times.
I haven't. I'm living in my fantasy land. I'm just going, and he's okay. Are you okay, Annie? That's all I'm doing. I don't care about the other shit.
Oh, you don't care about the long gander at the anus?
Well, who are we to judge? I don't know. So that's Phantom of the Paradise. Now, next week, get out your jingle balls, AJ, because it's Carry On Christmas, okay?
I'm so excited.
and we are going to watch Carry On Camping and Carry On Up the Khyber.
Yes.
So that'll be a good intro. Hey, Ricky, have you ever seen any Carry On films?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, this is going to be good.
You are gonna love it.
This is great.
I have an idea in my mind that it's kind of a bit like Benny Hill.
Well, you would be correct in that assumption.
Okay.
Sleazier than Benny Hill?
Well, I don't know. Look, they both come from the same tradition. It's just that, obviously Benny is a bit more of a skit show, but generally, yeah, it's the tone. The tone is exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And so, I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too.
Very good. Well, we said what we said.
Tough crowd this week. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we did say what we said. Whenever I don't write as much notes as I should, I always end up saying appalling things. I was like, a bit pressed for time, and that's when I end up saying stuff about Michael Jackson's dick and all that other stuff. Yeah, all that stuff. Anyway, long with the new flesh.
Long live the new flesh. Welcome, freaks and geeks, perverts, and other queers. My name is...
Good intro.
And other queers.